Well, inside Iran, there's been a lot of discussion on petrol prices. A few days ago, Iranian MPs warned the government against any further petrol price rises, calling instead for an overhaul of the way subsidised fuel is allocated. It appears the government have listened. Well, with me is Baran Abbasi from BBC Persian. Why, Baran, is there concern about the price of fuel?
So there has been concern that the price of fuel could increase again. Fuel prices are a very sensitive issue politically and economically, and the government is caught between two difficult choices. Consumption is very high in Iran. It reportedly exceeds 135 million litres a day, and there's a gap between consumption and supply. The government cannot keep up with producing enough fuel to provide to the drivers. There are a lot of cars on the road, so and they're not very efficient. Public transportation is poor, so people are using their own cars to get around. And traditionally, fuel prices have been kept very low through subsidies. And there's also a tiered system, so that there is not one single price of fuel. Every month, drivers get a monthly allowance of very cheap subsidized fuel, but if they want more fuel, then they have to buy more expensive fuel. And last year, the government introduced a third tier, so additional fuel would be even more expensive. But MPs are saying that it didn't really work. So the consumption remains very high. And there's also the problem of smuggling, because neighboring countries, fuel in those countries is much more expensive. So fuel is smuggled to those countries. So the government has to find some alternative way to basically bridge that gap between consumption and production without putting further pressure on consumers. And there's also the memory of 2019. The government sharply increased the price of fuel, and it led to nationwide protests, which, according to Amnesty International, left over 300 people dead in government crackdown, although unofficial figures are much higher. So the government knows that increasing fuel prices could have consequences far beyond the economy, could trigger public anger, and the people are already suffering. And the war has made the situation even worse because of the damage to infrastructure and disruption to supply. So it's much more difficult for the government to manage that imbalance between production and consumption.